Hello, boys and girls. Today's lesson has to do with division, and the content objective for the lesson is to determine a quotient using the relationship between multiplication and division. And our language objective for the lesson is to explain how I found the quotient of a division problem using the words quotient, multiplication, division, groups, each, and total. And a couple of sentence stems we're going to use for this is the quotient is blank, and the related multiplication facts are blank. So we're going to describe division by looking at a problem. And here we have, let's pretend that we're doing some recycling and we have some green glass bottles that we want to recycle. And we want to figure out how many containers do you need to recycle all the glass bottles. So as usual, when we have a problem, we have to talk about the UPS strategy. We have to understand the problem, then have a plan, and then move on to solve it. So in this problem, I see that there are a bunch of green glass bottles that need to be recycled and put into containers that hold 9 bottles in each. So I see that one of those containers can only hold 9. Now, I don't see any more bottles, so that's the total number of bottles that I have. So I kind of understand now that what the process should be using the understanding and planning and then solve. So when we're talking about multiplication and division, one thing we have to talk about is the get strategy, which is related to having always 3 things that are common for multiplication and division, which is groups, how many are in each group, and the total. So for multiplication, we're always going to have the groups and how many are in each. And then we have to figure out the total. The total is unknown. Whereas for division, we always have the total. We always know the total, and we don't know the number of groups, or we don't know how many in each. But we have to know one of those two. So let's talk about multiplication. Multiplication is combining groups and that have the same amount in each to find the total. Whereas division is having a total and separating it into groups, and each group has to have the same. So that's the relationship between the groups, the each, and the total, and that's why this strategy is so important. Now, if we focus on multiplication, we can see that multiplication is multiplying 2 factors. So 2 factors multiplied equals the product. Now, this factor can be, as we're talking about the get strategy, the number of groups, and then multiplied by how many in each. And the answer, or the product, will be the total, or the number in all. Now, if we focus on division, we start with a dividend divided by a divisor, and the answer is the quotient. Now, this dividend, or the number that we use to start, is going to be the total, or the number in all. We're going to divide it by the number of groups, or the number in each group, and then we're going to get a quotient that's going to be either the number of groups or the number in each group. These 2 numbers can switch in division. Okay? But one thing that we know for sure is that we're always going to know the total. We always need to know the total if we're going to divide. So when we're in the process of understanding the problem, and we're moving to that planning stage, we should know that, do we have the total, or are we looking for the total? If we have the total, then most likely we're going to have to divide. If we're looking for the total, we most likely have to multiply if we're talking about groups and each. Now, moving on to that problem that we started with at the beginning. So we do understand that it's a division problem. How do I know it's a division problem? Well, because I have a total number of bottles. I haven't counted them yet, but I know there's a total. There's not going to be more than that. So that's my total number of green glass bottles that I'm going to recycle and put into containers. And I also know that I have a container that holds 9 glass bottles. So I have the total, and I have how many fit in each, or how many are in each group. and I see that that number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I need to count the bottles. I see that there's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. So I see that the total is 27 bottles. So I know what the plan is. The plan is to divide 27 by 9. Okay, so one way I'm going to do this is I'm going to count 9, and I'm going to make one group of 9. So that's one group of 9. And then I'm going to do it again. So 9 more, that's a second group of 9. And then 9 more, that's one more group. So the quotient, I can see that I have 1, 2, 3. So once I divided those 27 bottles into groups of 9, I get 3 groups. So I can say that the quotient of 27 and 9 is 3, or 27 divided by 9 is 3. Now, one thing that is interesting is going back to that GET strategy and looking at the relationship between multiplication and division, that I can solve this a different way. I can use multiplication facts to solve the problem. Now, how do I do that? Well, dividing the total of 27 bottles, dividing into how many are in each group, which is 9, should equals my quotient, the number of groups. Now, I know from the relationship of multiplication and division that I can flip this and have the total, use the multiplication symbol, say, okay, now I'm going to multiply one number that I don't know, that is unknown to me, times 9, and that should equal a product of 27. Okay, so that number that I'm going to find is also going to be the number that I'm going to get for the quotient. So if I know my facts, I know I recognize this 27, I recognize 9, I know there's a number that multiplied by 9 is 27, and yes, since you all know all your facts, we know that 3 times 9 is 27. Therefore, 27 divided by 9 is, of course, 1, 2, 3. Those are the 3 groups that I could make to organize those 27 bottles into groups of 9. So to review, let's not forget the relationship between multiplication and division is very important, because most of you have learned your facts, and once you know them, when you divide, it's easy to recognize the number that is missing. So for example, in this division problem, 24 divided by 3, I have a total of 24. I'm going to divide into 3 in each group. I want to find out how many groups can I make of 3. So I reverse it and look at it as a multiplication. And I say, okay, what number multiplied by 3 equals 24? What number multiplied by 3 equals 24? And I look into that memory of mine where all my facts are stored, and I remember that 8 times 3 is 24. Now, look at the total here. Let's not forget that in multiplication, the total is at the end. In division, the total is at the beginning. Okay? So this is basically it. I want you to now focus on those practice exercises, and let's see what you learned.